Pleasant day to all of you, especially to Sir Rance. Good day, sir. I am Vilya Surya May, together with my companion, Miss Baring Ronnie Jane, and for today's video, we're going to discuss about sentence structure. Before we start our discussion, allow me to read first our learning objectives for today. So after this lesson, student will be able to first explain why correct sentence structure is important. Second, identify aspects of strong sentences. And lastly, follow steps to improve sentence structure. So without any further ado, let's move forward to our discussion now. So sentence structure is the way a sentence is arranged grammatically. It is also the arrangement of words, phrases, and clauses in a sentence. So sentence structure is how all the parts of sentence fit together. If you want to make more advanced and interesting sentences, you first have to understand how sentence structure works. So even a single missing, misplaced, or misused word can completely change the meaning of the sentence or make it too confusing to understand. More specifically, the basic sentence structure in English depends on two important elements, the subject and the predicate. So additionally, sentences contain one or more direct object and indirect object. So first, let's discuss what is the subject. So the subject of a sentence is the person, place, thing, or idea that is performing an action. The subject of the sentence is responsible for containing who or what is performing the action or experiencing the particular state in the sentence. So for example, in the sentence, the man laughed. So in this sentence, the subject is the man because it is a person. And the sentence is revolve and talks about the man who is the subject of the sentence. So next, the predicate. So predicate is part of the sentence that contain the main verb and any modified words or clauses. So the predicate is responsible for describing the action performed or state experienced by the subject. So for example, in the sentence, the man laughed. So in this sentence, the predicate is laugh because it's described what the subject is doing or the state of the subject. So what does the man do? The answer is laugh, right? Always remember that the predicate usually follow the subject in a sentence and it always describe an action word. So when subject and predicate is joined together, it creates complete thought. Sentence structure may ultimately be composed of any parts, but remember that the foundation of each sentence is the subject and predicate. The subject is a word or a group of words that function as a noun. The predicate is at least a verb and possibly include object and modifier of a verb. So in every complete sentence, there is a direct and indirect object. So now let's discuss what are these. So let's discuss first the direct object. The direct object is a person, place, thing, or idea that receive the action in the sentence. A direct object is the person or thing that directly receive the action or effect of the verb. It answers the question what or whom. So for example, in the sentence, the man bought a newspaper. So as you can notice, in this sentence, the direct object is the newspaper because it is the one who received the action. So what did the man buy? The newspaper, right? Now let's proceed the indirect object. So indirect object of a sentence signifies to whom or for whom an action is done. An indirect object answers the question for what, of what, to what, for whom, to whom, or for whom, and accompanies direct subject. So for example, in the sentence, the man bought a newspaper for me. So in this sentence, the direct object is the word me because it answered the question to whom the man bought the newspaper. So to me, right? So let's compare the direct and indirect object using this sentence. She gave the phone to her mother. She gave what? The phone, right? So that is the direct object. To whom? To her mother, which is the indirect object. So that's all my report, and now let's proceed to the next discussion about the four types of sentence structure to be reported by Miss Ronnie Jane Baring.
Thank you, Miss Villasor. Hello everyone, I am Ronnie Jane P. Baring and I will be going to discuss the four types of sentence structure. The simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. Now that we've tackled what is sentence structure, let's look more in depth at its different types. First is simple sentences. The most basic type of English sentence is the simple structure. This is when a sentence is composed of just one independent clause. A clause which contains a subject, the noun performing the action of the sentence, and predicate, the action being taken, and expresses a complete thought. Like all sentences, it can also contain a direct object, the noun receiving the action of the sentence, or indirect object, the object for whom the action is being done. Here are a few simple sentence examples. I didn't go to the game. She was correct. The writer was out of ideas. The movie was over 2 hours long. Second one is compound sentences. The compound sentence combines two or more independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction or and, but, yet, for, nor, so, or a semicolon. Here are some examples. She was sick, so she didn't go to the school. So the compound sentence here is so. Another example, Greg kept his distance. He knew he was a dangerous man. So the compound sentence here is the semicolon. As for the last example, I was exhausted but I worked all night. Mom was still at work and Dad was out for dinner. Notice how all of these sentences could be broken into two. She was sick. She didn't go to school. Mom was still at work. Dad was out of dinner. That's because these sentences contain two independent clauses which can be turned into simple sentences. The third structure is the complex sentences. Complex sentences consist of an independent clause and a dependent clause. A dependent clause is an incomplete thought. Example, although I was sick, because you can and thus needs to be attached to an independent clause. It's also known as a subordinate clause. Here are some complex structure examples. He was so funny, the whole crowd would have been laughing. I went to dinner because I was hungry. She turned her down because she was in love with someone else. The last one is compound complex sentences. True to their name, compound complex sentences combine the ideas behind both compound and complex sentences. They contain at least two independent clauses and a dependent clause. Because they can be pretty hard to parse, the coordinating conjunction, semicolon, and the dependent clauses. Let's take a look in the example. Because he was injured, the team played with a short bench and their rivals beat them soundly. So, the words because he was injured is the dependent clause, while the team played with a short bench is independent clause, and the word and here is the coordinating conjunction. Another example of compound complex sentence is I wonder what became of him. If he liked Chicago so much, it made no sense for him to up and leave. Last example is the teacher gave Jimmy a timeout because of his bad behavior and we all laughed at him, revealing in the chaos he had wrought. You might be thinking that proper sentence structure is one of those things that you use but don't need to understand. We all write different structures even though we might not necessarily be cognizant of it. But paying attention to basic sentence construction is a great way to look at the rhythm of your writing more carefully. That's all. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you and God bless us all.